After being reborn, I avoided the tragedy of my previous life and married Shinayuan, who loved me as if his life depended on it. I thought that after 2 lifetimes of hardship, I would finally taste the sweetness of life, until his mistress knelt before me, holding their child, as he wished. Why did I calmly arrange for his concubine to enter the household? He questioned me frantically. Are you so magnanimous that you feel no jealousy? Because, for you and me, this life ends here, and you, perhaps, will never know. My rebirth was bought with your life, offered to the gods and Buddhas in our previous existence. A light rain falls on the mountain temple, bringing a sense of solitude and coolness. Only in my dreams, there is a fire that never burns out. Since my marriage, I have not dreamed of my past life for many years. The flames that engulfed the palace walls, the collapsing beams and pillars, the pain that seared through my bones and heart. The child that never had a chance to be born. Now the dream begins, as if separated by several lifetimes. As the dark night ends and the morning light falls, in the moment when all sounds are still, a loud and pure bell rings through the remnants of my dream, waking me. Suddenly opening my eyes, I gasp for breath. My gaze tense as I look out the window. It is once again the spring rainy season. Shinayuan mentioned a few days ago that once the weather clears, he would take me to Yuming Mountain for a spring outing. But that day, it was also such a rainy day, with the wind carrying the fragrance of flowers and the rain washing away the spring dust. A gentle drizzle fell softly along the heavenly streets, creating layers of rain curtains. The woman Shinayuan kept outside knelt weakly and bonelessly behind the rain curtain, with a 3-year-old child standing beside her. Please, madam, show mercy. If only you would allow me and my child to enter the mansion, even if it means serving the general as slaves, I would have no complaints. I find it absurd, yet when that 3-year-old child lifted his face, that face, bearing an 80% resemblance to Shinayuan, shattered all my hopes and fantasies. Madam, Ye doesn't want to be a child without a father. Please give my father back to Ye. Ye is father's only child, not a wild child. Madam, in your great mercy and compassion, I beg for your grace. At that moment, I felt something shatter completely, never to be whole again. The heart that had once been burned to ashes, after being painstakingly pieced back together with someone's life, unexpectedly began to crack once more. Several days had passed since that day, and I had been staying at the temple. I knew I was running away, afraid to face what lay ahead, yet between Shinayuan and me, there must ultimately be a resolution. Madam, the general has been standing outside the temple all night, drenched in the rain. The visitor was not my personal maid Qingdai, but rather Zifu, the senior maid by the old lady's side. Seeing that I did not speak, she bowed and continued, "Forgive my impertinence, but regarding that woman, there are now some rumors circulating in the capital, which may harm your reputation." I glanced at her. What are they saying? That I'm jealous, arrogant, that I monopolize favor, or that I'm unfilial and disrespectful? Zifu remained calm, merely bending her waist even lower. This servant wouldn't dare. Miss Zifu. I walked up to her, gently helping her to stand. There's no need to scare me with such words. If it were made public that a high-ranking court official privately kept a mistress, not only would it be despised by the world, but the censors in the court would also have enough to criticize. That woman dared to barge in front of me like that. If no one had instructed or backed her, I wouldn't believe it, and these so-called rumors in the capital are merely a test for me. The old lady dares not pressure Shinayuan, so she puts pressure on me, hoping I will take the initiative to step back. Upon hearing this, Zifu's expression changed. She knelt and bowed. I hope Madam will consider the Shun family and the greater situation. I have been married into the Shun family for 6 years, yet I have not borne any children. For the old lady to tolerate this until now is already no small feat. However, what truly shames me and is most difficult to look back on is none other than Shinayuan. Once, We swore by heaven and earth that we would never betray each other in this lifetime, yet that person has long since changed their heart. Qingdai held my hand and asked softly, "Miss, are we still going back to the Shen family?" I wiped the tears from the corner of my eye and whispered, "Let me be alone for a while, Qingdai. I need to think about how to spend the rest of my life. In my past life, I gave my sincere heart to the wrong person. I thought I had finally met the right one in this life, someone to grow old with. In the end, it made me see clearly that deep affection has never been worthy of being promised." When I stepped out of the meditation room in the temple, I immediately saw Shen Yuan standing in the rain, once the son of the mighty Marquis, later the dragon cavalry general, renowned far and wide. A god of the battlefield whose name could silence a crying child at night, feared and respected by all. But at this moment, he was like a discarded wolfhound, staring at me stubbornly with his eyes wide open. I walked up to him, raised my head, and looked at him carefully. He was well versed in military strategy by the age of 6, capable of going into battle and killing enemies by 10, and at 15, he led 300 cavalrymen in a surprise attack on the enemy camp, turning the tide of the war in favor of the great Jew. Over years of campaigning, he achieved 7 consecutive victories, reclaiming Shirobei, subduing the Rong and Di tribes, repelling the Chanyu, pacifying Xiangbei, slaying generals, capturing kings, and earning a reputation as the bravest of all. Such a man was unyielding in spirit, proud and unflinching, not even blinking when an arrow pierced his heart. Yet now, his face was flushed, his lips pale, clearly telling me that he was ill. "Wanwan, have you forgiven me?" He lowered his head, his handsome face covered in water stains, his tall figure slightly hunched. "Right after I was reborn, whenever I felt unsettled or my thoughts were in disarray, I liked to stay in the temple for peace and quiet. But after getting married, I never stayed there again." Shen Yuan didn't know why I had come to stay at the temple this time. He just thought that perhaps he had done something wrong to upset me. Even if he didn't know whether he was at fault or what his mistake was, his first instinct was to come and apologize to me. When I refused to see him, he stubbornly stood outside the temple all night. No matter who witnessed it, they would sigh and say, "General Shen truly loves his wife to the bone, cherishing her as if she were his life." Just as after our marriage, I never demanded that he return home before the lanterns were lit every day, yet he would always tell his friends that his wife was waiting for him at home. Over time, rumors spread in the capital that General Shen's wife was a man-eating tigress. Upon hearing this, Shen Yuan had the person tied up and gave them a beating. "Who are you calling a tigress? My wife is as beautiful as a fairy, and even her voice is softer than others, you blind dog. What do you mean by henpecked? It's my own choice, and I take delight in it. What do you know? How could he not love me? His eyes, his heart, clearly love me deeply. It's just that he doesn't love only me." I avoided his intense gaze, looking towards the misty green mountains, and whispered softly, "Let's go home." The tall and imposing Shen Yuan squeezed into my carriage, instantly making the space feel cramped. The man, usually cold as iron and imposing without anger, now wore a pleasant curve at the corner of his mouth. He watched me intently, just as he always did, and reached out his hand, wanting to hold mine. My entire body tensed up, and I instinctively moved my hand away. "Don't touch me." Shen Yuan's hand paused mid-air, his expression faltering for a moment as he looked at me, as if searching for an answer. After a long silence, he lowered his hand and shifted toward the edge of the carriage. I almost forgot I carry a heavy chill with me. "I shouldn't get too close to you. Don't be upset, I'll just keep my distance." He huddled in a corner of the carriage, his tall frame drawn in as tightly as possible, looking somewhat awkward. I glanced at him and, for a moment, it felt as though I were seeing him from my past life again. Snow fell from the sky, and he, dressed in purple, held my ashes in his arms. With every 3 steps, he bowed once, each step staining the ground with blood. Kneeling his way up 900 steps to pray for my rebirth, I watched him like this, seeing two tiny reflections of myself in his dark pupils. In an instant, all the bitterness surged forth, and I suddenly covered my face with my hands, sobbing softly. Each sob seemed to bleed, choking my voice. Tears falling through my fingers as if to cry out all the fate that bound us across 2 lifetimes. He looked flustered, no longer caring about anything else. Wonwan, don't cry. Whoever made you uncomfortable, I'll kill them, I beg you, don't cry. From obsession and attachment, my sickness arises. How could I remain sober and not succumb to such fervent, enduring love, a devotion that defied life and death across 2 lifetimes? For a long time after my death in my previous life, I was trapped by Xiao Yuyang's side, watching him descend into madness, witnessing his endless sleepless nights. I thought I would be bound there forever, until that day, Shina Yuan returned. The Shun family has been loyal and virtuous for generations, producing renowned ministers and capable generals, remaining steadfastly loyal to the Xiao dynasty throughout the ages. No one could have imagined that Shina Yuan would raise an army in rebellion, marching straight for the imperial city of Chang'an. As his armor was stained with blood and his long sword pointed directly at the emperor, he demanded, "Where is Jiang Wan's body?" With his hair disheveled, the emperor looked at him, weeping tears of blood, and laughed wildly. "Shina Yuan, you are always 1 step too late, 1 step behind. Jiang Wen is my imperial consort, and even in death, she can only be my wife. Ha ha ha." Xiao Yuyang's blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, while Shina Yuan's eyes wept tears of blood. Later, he imprisoned Xiao Yuyang in the water dungeon, awaiting him daily with the blade of punishment. He searched the entire imperial palace and the Xiao family's royal mausoleum, finally finding me in the secret chamber of Xiao Yuyang's bedchamber. I never knew he loved me to such an extent. Later, as I carefully recalled, I was startled to realize that traces of him seemed to have been present throughout countless years of my past. I clung obsessively to Xiao Yuyang, bringing him food and praying for his safety, and I would often see Shina Yuan, in the vast expanse of white snow, the young man, dressed in dark, form-fitting attire, his ponytail flying high, rode a spirited horse that swept past like a gust of wind, resembling a flame racing across the snowy ground. He merely glanced at me indifferently before galloping away. On the day of my grand wedding with Xiao Yuyang, all the guests in the hall were filled with joy, except for him. Alone with a jug of wine, holding a sword in his hand, he leaned against the edge of the crowd, lost in thought, his gaze fixed on something unknown. The sedan chair on the palace path never deliberately stopped, and he would always say, "May the lady be well." I was truly mistaken, wrong in believing that the word love could smooth over all worldly desires and prejudices. The moon stands alone and bright, the wind rises again, my heart feels like would turn to ashes. I take up the brush, set it to the white paper, and write the words for peaceful separation. "Madam, the general is gravely ill. I beg you to go and see him." Mo Ying, who was by Shina Yuan's side, stood outside the door. Pleading softly, I set down my brush, remained silent for a moment, and then replied calmly, "If he's ill, then call a doctor. I won't be going over." This Mo Ying was taken aback, left speechless. In the past, whenever Shina Yuan made a mistake, he would often use such tactics to deceive me, trying to win my sympathy. Yet, I always fall for his tricks. As soon as I heard he was sick, I couldn't help but rush to see him, disregarding everything else. This was probably the first time I had been so cold toward him. I drifted into a restless sleep until midnight, when a sudden, searing heat on the back of my hand jolted me awake. I opened my eyes to see Shina Yuan kneeling by the bed, pressing his burning forehead against the back of my hand. I tried to pull away with all my strength, but he held me down tightly. He murmured, "Wanwan, I'm really sick. I'm not lying to you. Why won't you come see me?" He was filled with anxiety. His heart in utter turmoil, tears falling one by one onto the back of my hand. "What did I do wrong? Tell me, and I'll change. Don't ignore me like this. If you keep this up, I'll go mad." I leaned against the head of the bed, watching his tall figure crouch down. Behind him hung a delicate, small sword. It was the one he had personally crafted for me back then, tailored to my needs in both weight and shape. Back then, holding this sword, he spoke like a madman. "Wonwan. This sword is made of dark iron, capable of killing as easily as slicing through mud. If I ever wrong you, use this sword to kill me." I withdrew my hand, searching around for a handkerchief to wipe it. Seeing this, Shana Yuan carefully used his sleeve to dry the tear stains on the back of my hand. "Shana Yuan, have you ever done anything that wronged me?" I asked calmly. He paused for a moment before looking up, swearing earnestly. "No, I haven't done anything." My chest ached with a trembling pain as I repeatedly, unwillingly, scrutinized his expression. He truly appeared so open and without a trace of guilt. If I hadn't already known the truth, I might have been fooled by his demeanor. I turned my face away, calming my emotions, and forced a smile. "Do you remember what you said when we got married?" Of course, he remembered. "Wonwan, no matter the time or circumstances, I want only you. You are the sole reason I live." Yes, you once vowed to be like a steadfast pine, enduring for 1,000 years, yet today, the fragrant hibiscus has already taken on new meaning. Shana Yuan, your vows are worthless, unable to withstand the test of time. Wonwan, I had that strange dream again. He held my hand tightly, as if afraid I might disappear. "I keep dreaming that someone takes you away from me. Sometimes it's Xiao Yuyang. Sometimes I can't see their face clearly. They take you, but they don't treat you well. They all deserve to die." Thankfully Xiao Yuyang is dead. In the early days of our marriage, he would have these dreams a few nights each month. Each time, he would wake up startled in the middle of the night, then reach out with trembling hands to find me sleeping peacefully beside him, pulling me tightly into his embrace. I never told him that it wasn't a dream, it was my past life. Xiao Yuyang was the one I had mistakenly given my heart to in my past life, and also the enemy who, upon ascending the throne, slaughtered my entire Jiang family. Shana Yuan was running a fever, yet his arms around me were as strong as steel. In his dazed state, he murmured, "Wonwan, no matter what happens, you must never leave me." I traced the contours of his brow, his nose, and his thin lips with my fingers. In this life, I had originally resolved never to marry again. To live out my days with the dim light of an oil lamp and the ancient Buddha was the path I had chosen for myself. Shana Yuan, it took me countless reserves of courage to dare walk this path with you once more. But in the end, you let me down. The next day, I went alone to the Jingya Hall, the esteemed matriarch of the general's mansion. Shana Yuan's grandmother had been waiting for me for a long time. Her hair had turned white, but due to her martial arts training in her youth, her back remained straight, showing no signs of aging. I greeted her with proper etiquette, and she sighed, beginning to recount. "Bailan, that woman, you must have heard of her. She is the daughter of Minister Shu." I lowered my head, pondering. In my past life, I had indeed heard that Minister Shu had a daughter. In the heavily constrained capital, she stood out from the many noble ladies, bold, daring to love and hate, and capturing the admiration of numerous princes and nobles. However, later on, I was too preoccupied with my own troubles to pay any further attention. Little did I expect that she, the dignified daughter of a minister, would willingly become a mistress. Miss Shu's actions were also instructed by grandmother. "So what does grandmother wish for her granddaughter-in-law to do?" I asked calmly. She did not answer but instead said, "For years ago, for Anna's sake, Bailan disguised herself as a man and followed the army to the border. She endured hardships without complaint, braved the harsh cold and difficulties of the frontier, and stayed by his side for a full year. She suffered greatly, even giving birth to the child alone in secret. For Anna, she had already severed ties with the Shu family. If it weren't for having no other choice, she would never have appeared. So that's how it was. It turned out to be so early, 4 years ago. Shen Yuan and I had only been married for 2 years, while Shu Bailan had returned to the capital 3 years ago. Over these 3 years, Shen Yuan knew, and the elderly woman before me knew. Only I, like a fool who has broken through the heavens, I closed my eyes and straightened up. So, what does grandmother want Jiang Wen to do? She was silent for a long moment. The bloodline of the Shen family cannot be left to wander outside. Bai Lan must enter the household. She is unwilling to be a concubine, so I want Anna to welcome her in with the rights of a co-wife. She claims the self-respect and self-love of being unwilling to be a concubine, yet willingly degraded herself to be an outsider's mistress for 3 years. Truly contradictory to the extreme, laughable to the extreme. Wana, I cannot let down the ancestors of the Shen family. Anna may be acting recklessly, but I cannot follow suit. The Shen family must have descendants. Suddenly, I smiled and asked, word by word, Madam, have you forgotten why I am unable to bear children? In the final moments of helping the third prince seize the throne, if I hadn't gone to rescue Shen Yuan, I wouldn't have been trapped in the cold pond for a day and a night, damaging my body and leaving me unable to conceive. However, I do not blame him. I never had any intention of marrying in the first place. When he came to propose, I repeatedly emphasized that if he married me, having children would be difficult. I would also never share a husband with another woman. It was he who once paraded through the streets of Chang'an, flaunting his presence, declaring to the world that in this life, I am the only one for him. All I desire is the heart of one person, to grow old together without parting. Madam, this is the vow he made to me. I did not force it from him. The old lady's expression shifted, and after a moment, her attitude suddenly turned firm. Most men's vows are empty promises made in the heat of passion. To believe them wholeheartedly is simply foolish. Moreover, having multiple wives and concubines is a common human desire. Over these years, he has refrained from taking concubines or favoring others for your sake, showing utmost benevolence and righteousness. Tell me, who else could have done as much? Jiang Wen, you should be content. I nodded. I was truly foolish, having witnessed such devastation. Yet still believing in the sincerity he professed. Whether you wish to make Shu Bailan a secondary wife or the principal wife, Jiang Wen will not stand in the way. However, if Jiang Wen wishes to pursue something in the future, I hope the elder lady will not hinder me. A flicker of delight passed through her eyes. As long as you agree, I will not interfere with anything else. You must not. At that moment, a loud shout came from outside the hall. Shen Yuan's sister married into the Duke of England's household 2 years ago. Sister-in-law, you cannot leave, you must not. She held my hand, having actually discerned my intention, her eyes filled with concern. What are you doing here? This is nonsense. The old lady's face darkened. I patted Shen Ning's hand and sighed softly. People's hearts are fickle, one cannot force them. I held my head high and walked out of the courtyard step by step, never looking back. In the Jingya hall, Shen Ning spoke bluntly. Grandmother, if it weren't for sister-in-law back then, my brother would never have married in his lifetime. You used Shu Bailan to lead him astray, leaving him in constant fear and unease. He kept it hidden for 3 years, afraid only that his sister-in-law would find out. Yet you didn't consider him at all and just laid it all out before her. Grandmother, Shen Ning choked back a sob. You don't know how much my brother loves his sister-in-law. You will ruin him. The old matriarch tightened her grip on her cane, tapping it heavily on the ground as she said sternly, You are a married woman now. There's no need for you to come back home for no reason. This is a matter for the Shen family and has nothing to do with you. Her eyes shone brightly as she looked out into the hall. Jiang Wan's figure was slender and frail, yet there was an unyielding pride about her. She seemed to be trying to convince herself, murmuring to herself, "It's just a Jiang Wn. Just a Jiang Wn. My Anna is a true man. How could he be ruined by a woman? Shinar Yuan is an alert person. He must have already investigated my recent unusual behavior repeatedly. That mistress has been living in a residence in the western suburbs for over 3 years. I had Qing Dai go out of the city to check. It was a 3-section courtyard, fully equipped with maids, servants, and attendants, looking just like a grand household. Qing Dai seized the opportunity to strike up a conversation with the old woman who had gone out to make purchases. The old woman, having received a silver ingot, carefully chose her words. Our master is a traveling merchant, and he returns home once or twice every month. You've never seen our master. He is truly handsome and dignified, with an imposing presence. In our daily lives, we only need to serve the mistress and the young master. So many of us serving just one adult and one child. No other household has such easy work, of course. The master dotes on our mistress, whether it's food, clothing, or daily necessities. Everything is of the finest quality, and every month, goods flow in here like a steady stream. He had another home with her. He was the master, and she was his lady. The journey from the capital to the estate in the western suburbs took a full day to go and return. By the time Qing Dai and I arrived, it was already midday. Given Shinar Yuan's habits, he was certain to come here today. Before long, through the window of the tea house's elegant room, I saw the woman standing in front of the courtyard, dressed in a light green gauze gown with a pale pink thin coat over it, occasionally standing on tiptoe to look around. This area is considered the liveliest and most bustling part of the western suburbs, which is why the sound of hurried hoofbeats stood out so prominently. I turned to look and saw a figure dressed in black, adorned with golden pythons, who dismounted and casually tossed the riding crop to a guard behind. The woman gave a light, joyful hop, and her lips clearly formed the word husband. Shinar Yuan had his back to me, so I only saw him suddenly grab the woman by the neck, though I couldn't make out what he said. The woman, with tears in her eyes, shook her head and spoke in a pitiful, sorrowful tone, uttering words like no, no. A few moments later, he released the woman and gently wiped the tear stains from her cheeks with his fingertips, his movements tender and affectionate. Shinar Yuan bent down, picked up the child who only reached his legs, and tossed the child upward, eliciting a burst of bell-like laughter. I had thought that he had his reasons. Perhaps he just wanted a child, or perhaps he was just momentarily confused, but I clearly saw that Shinar Yuan was also smiling. A loving mother, a strict father, and a noisy child. What a harmonious family of 3. Only I, like a joke, as Shinar Yuan seemed to sense something and looked over, I quickly closed the window lattice. With my back to the windowsill, I slowly closed my eyes, my fingertips trembling slightly, my heart churning with dense, overwhelming pain. I couldn't catch my breath, my chest heaving, laughing and crying uncontrollably as I asked, Qing Dai, am I really so unworthy of being treated well? Otherwise, why do they always betray me? How can they end up breaking their promises despite taking different paths? Since they can't keep their word, why did they make promises to me in the first place? Qing Dai gritted her teeth, her eyes red as she struggled to support me. Miss, this is not your fault. A man, even if his wife at home is a celestial beauty or a saint, if he is determined to change his heart, it's all the same. It's their fault. It's their insatiable greed. They deserve to be sent to the 18th layer of hell. Suddenly, I understood. Sincerity. Sincerity is the most important thing. Yet sincerity is ever-changing, fleeting. After returning to the estate, it wasn't until nightfall that I finally heard Shinar Yuan's voice as he came back. Wanwan, after finishing my military drills today, I went to buy your favorite chestnut cake. Are you feeling a bit better today? He bent down, and the hand that had just brushed past someone else gently stroked my cheek, suddenly making me feel disgusted. As the evening breeze passed by him, I distinctly caught a faint, sweet, cloying fragrance. Suddenly, I really wanted to ask him why he had to deceive me like this. If only he had been honest with me, I would never have clung to him. If he wanted a child, or any woman, he could have told me. I would have let him go. Shana Yuan, I said wearily, blinking as I looked at him in the candlelight, my voice calm. I regret it. Coincidentally, he was bending over at that moment, patiently placing my embroidered shoes in the spot where I usually step. Upon hearing my words, the shoe in his hand suddenly fell to the ground. He crouched low, his hands trembling as he straightened the shoe, then lifted his sleeve to gently wipe it a few times. Only then did he slowly raise his head to look at me. He smiled somewhat awkwardly, rubbing my fingers. Was the tea too hot this morning? Or was today's meal not to your liking? I specifically asked the kitchen to add a new dish yesterday. Did you not like it? Now that the world is at peace and the wars have long ceased, he, a great general, oversees everything from my meals to my daily life. Whenever he sees something new and interesting in other households while out and about, he always makes sure to get one for his wife at home. Even the current emperor once teased him, saying he might as well change his profession to become his wife's personal maid. Thinking of this, I turned my head and said, "Yes, I regret having drunk too much tea today, so I can't eat the chestnut cake." Perhaps he himself didn't even realize it. But upon hearing my words, he let out a sigh of relief as if a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. "As long as you're willing to eat, I'll buy it for you every day." I forced a smile. The old lady wanted to preserve the dignity of the entire Shen family and protect that woman's reputation, hoping to handle this matter discreetly. But I refused to let you have your way. Having lived 2 lives, I may not have learned much else, but I have mastered one thing: repaying others in their own coin. Coincidentally, on this day, with the spring sun shining brightly, Princess Pingyang was suddenly inspired and organized a polo match at her suburban villa, inviting young men and women from noble families to attend. Princess Pingyang is the only sister of the current emperor and is deeply cherished. Under the bright sun on the field, Pingyang wore a striking red outfit, a light green ribbon tied around her wrist, long leather boots on her feet. Her hair tied high in a bun, and her fair face slightly lifted. Holding a polo mallet, she radiated confidence and pride, declaring, "For the first match today, I challenge you alone." I shook my polo mallet, squinting against the sun. "It's been many years since I last played, so I hope your highness will go easy on me." She smiled, turned her head, and raised her slender hand. In her previous life, Pingyang was not as carefree and joyful as she is now. On the contrary, she lived cautiously in the deep palace, treading on thin ice. Before her elder brother passed away, he begged Xiao Yuyang to spare his sister's life. Thus, no matter how bitter or difficult it was, she lived on through her tears. She always said that her brother's life was still with her, and she was living for 2 people. But later, in order to quell the war with the Qiangrong, Xiao Yuyang, despite my objections, sent her to the border for a marriage alliance. She never enjoyed the privileges of a princess, yet she stood tall and shouldered her duty. She said, "Sister-in-law, I am a princess, in such a barbaric land, where the father's death is succeeded by the son." Unable to bear the humiliation, she passed away in just 4 years, just as I was about to mount the horse. Shana Yuan strode over and reached out his hand to me. No need. I avoided his hand and smoothly swung myself onto the horse's back, his outstretched hand slowly clenched. His gaze somewhat dim. I forgot. One used to be skilled in riding and archery. I pulled on the reins and looked down at him. Of course, he had forgotten, just as he had forgotten why he once loved me. Time always wears away many memories. It had indeed been many years since I last played polo, not because I disliked it, but because the old matriarch disapproved, but she never said it outright. Knowing that Shana Yuan valued me, she always hinted at it indirectly. I knew I had fallen short in the matter of heirs and didn't want to put Shana Yuan in a difficult position. So gradually, I stopped doing these things. The drumbeats rose, the sound of hooves fell, repeatedly striking the ball, turning the body and twisting the arm, bending down to strike upward, turning the back to tap the ball. Every move and technique has been boiling in my mind for years. I tightened the reins, raised the horse's head, and stared fixedly as the ball flew diagonally into the opponent's goal. It wasn't until the cheers erupted that I snapped back to reality. Princess Pingyang dismounted and tapped with her polo mallet. Jiang Wn, you cheated. I smiled and said, polo is akin to the art of war. Your Highness should understand that in war, all is fair. I turned to look, and Shana Yuan's gaze was fixed on me, not moving an inch, his eyes filled with affection, when it was his turn to take the field. He squeezed my hand and said, today's greatest prize will surely be for our Wanwan. I didn't say anything, just glanced around a few times, until Shana Yuan stood outside the field, and suddenly a small figure rushed over like a gust of wind, hugged his leg, and shouted loudly, Daddy. He raised his head, his face bearing a striking resemblance to Shana Yuan, about 70 to 80% alike. Not just me, but everyone turned their gaze toward the sound. Shana Yuan, who had his back to the crowd, seemed to freeze instantly. Whispers immediately broke out. General Shen's son. When did his wife give birth to such a grown son? Princess Pingyang frowned and asked me, your son? It's not mine, I said calmly, it's Shana Yuan's. The first half of the sentence was somewhat normal, but when combined with the second half, everyone present had grown up in the scheming households of wealthy families. Just hearing the beginning was enough to guess the rest. Shana Yuan currently has only one wife, no concubines or maidservants. Since his wife has no children, this child must be illegitimate. At that moment, a woman rushed out from the crowd, tightly hiding the child's head in her embrace. Shu Bailan looked at me, and our eyes met. This was the first time I had truly looked at her. In her eyes, there was resentment, humiliation, and unwillingness. She probably guessed that the letter she received today was written by me, imitating Shana Yuan's handwriting. Suddenly, someone in the crowd exclaimed, isn't this the daughter of Vice Minister Shu who died of illness? I heard she passed away from a severe illness years ago. How could she have a child with Shana Yuan now? Can't you even understand this? A mistress and an illegitimate child. What a disgrace. Coincidentally, another daughter of the Shu family was also present today. Witnessing such a scene, she felt utterly ashamed and, unwilling to attract more attention, quietly slipped away. I calmly watched Shana Yuan, seeing him slowly turn around. His eyes suddenly seemed to be filled with a chilling intent, which actually made me hold my breath for half a moment. He bent down to pick up the child, grabbed the woman's arm, and strode out, from beginning to end. Not a single word of explanation was offered to me, nor a single word of comfort. I pinched the palm of my hand and calmly watched his figure stride away. A farce had disrupted the splendid scenery here. And Princess Pingyang lost her playful mood. She leaned lazily against the couch and said coolly, you have quite the nerve, daring to cause trouble in my domain. I smiled and said, so how does the princess plan to punish me? She waved her hand, dismissing the attendants on both sides, and only then spoke. If you can't smile, don't force it. It looks worse than crying. I stopped smiling, my expression turning desolate as I gazed out the window. She propped her chin on her hand and said, this time, you've completely tarnished the reputation of the general's mansion and Shana Yuan. From now on, he won't even have the face to walk around the capital. I tugged at the corner of my mouth. If my husband keeps a mistress, does that bring me any glory? I've already abandoned my own reputation. So why should I care about his? If I want a divorce, I want it to be clear and transparent. I want the whole world to know that it was Shana Yuan who wronged me first, that it was Shana Yuan who broke his promises. Ping Yang's voice sounded somewhat hollow. Back then, his vows were known throughout the streets and alleys. I even truly admired such a man, thinking that someday I would find someone like him. It's just a pity that men, in the end, are unreliable. I glanced at her. You still can't let go of the top scholar, and 5 years ago, Princess Pingyang fell in love with the top scholar, and Wang Shu, at the Thousand Autumns banquet, her affection was widely known. Yet, that top scholar was like a block of ice, repeatedly rejecting her advances and remaining unmoved. No one knows from which day it started, but Pingyang suddenly changed her mind, no longer chasing after him. Instead, she surrounded herself with numerous male companions. Later, I heard that Wang Shu had abandoned the integrity of a scholar, willingly debasing himself, and had once offered himself as a male concubine. Pingyang smiled, shook her head, and said, "Those who abandon me are not worth pining for. Those who abandon me are not worth keeping, not worth pining for." When I returned to the mansion, Shana Yuan was still nowhere to be seen. Only the elderly lady was waiting for me in the hall. Upon seeing me, her first words were, "Jiang Wn. The Shun family has treated you well, yet you are so malicious. You clearly promised me." Standing outside the door, I gave a slight bow. "Madam, I have not broken the promise I made to you. I have never stood in the way of you arranging a marriage or taking a concubine for him." "Good, good, good," she said sternly. "In that case, I will have Anna marry Bailan right away. I will simply say that the two of them have long been in love, but were kept apart by someone with ulterior motives, causing her to suffer." "Grandmother," Shana Yuan's voice sounded in the night, cold as striking jade. "I beg you, don't let me compound my mistakes." "Anna," Shana Yuan's hands trembled, wanting to touch me, yet stopping just short of doing so. "You knew all along, didn't you?" I looked into his reddened eyes, filled with enough regret and deep affection to drown a person's heart. "You're not early. After all, you met 4 years ago. And those who should have known would have known 3 years earlier." He gripped my wrist tightly, declaring like an oath, "I won't let her into the mansion. My heart belongs only to you." Wanwan, he was too afraid, his strength enough to crush my wrist. I tried to find a trace of deceit in his eyes, only to realize that a person could be both unfaithful and deeply affectionate at the same time. He loves me, yet he still cannot prevent himself from betraying me. The cool breeze carries the dampness of the night, chilling my skin, and even my heart and lungs feel a wave of coldness. I ask, "Why did you hide it from me?" His face gradually pales, his fingers clenching until they turn white. "I didn't mean to hide it from you. I didn't want you to know because I didn't want you to be hurt." He draws near to me, disregarding his pride and dignity, repeating over and over, "You can hit me, scold me, just don't leave me, okay?" The old lady quickly dismissed the attendants, looking at him with a mix of frustration and disappointment, even though his very soul was screaming with fear, terrified that I might abandon him. Why did he still choose to hide the truth and deceive me? Ah, I see, he was taking a gamble. He was betting that, with the situation already set in stone between us, I had nowhere else to go. He is gambling, betting on our deep affection and strong bond. That I will understand, he merely did what any man in this world would do. He is also gambling, betting that my youth has faded, that I am unwilling to stir up trouble and will swallow the bitter pill for him. I asked him, "The old lady wants me to ask you, are you willing to marry Miss Shu as a secondary wife?" He seemed to feel that discussing another woman with me like this had laid bare his shame, and he restrained himself, saying, "She is not worthy. My wife, Shana Yuan, will only be you." I said calmly, "Then take a concubine. Choose a day for her to enter the mansion. How about that?" He suddenly looked up at me, and after a long while, he tightly grasped my hand again. "I promise you, I'll only give her a title. From now on, she'll live in the West Garden, and you won't have to see her. We'll act as if she doesn't exist, just like before." I still held on to a last shred of hope for him, but I never expected that he would agree. I gazed at the red candles burning in the hall. Their flames long but their lives short, shedding tears for those who watched. Even it is crying, weeping for my life as fleeting as colored clouds and fragile as glass. Seeing this, the old lady quickly said, "In that case, let Bylan's child also be registered under Wanna's name. You are the mistress of the household and cannot bear children. After all, that is Anna's first child, the eldest grandson. It cannot be registered under a concubine's name." Shana Yuan interrupted her. "Enough. Are you truly determined to push the two of us to our deaths?" The old lady pursed her lips, her expression stunned, and dared not speak another word. Many families originally regarded Shen Wan's statement about never taking a concubine as nothing more than a joke. Now, with the news of Shen Wan's intention to take a concubine spreading, it has truly become a laughingstock. Shu Bailan's entry into the household was quite simple. A small sedan chair carried her in through the side gate. Perhaps I was too calm on the night she entered the mansion. Shana Yuan, drunk, asked me over and over why I could so easily share him with others, why I wasn't jealous. I looked at the words in the book, reading them aloud to myself, one by one. "You should be like a steadfast rock, and I like the reeds. The reeds are as pliable as silk, but the rock can also be easily moved. Because I had already shed tears for you, my heart had already been broken, and now it is simply that the Brocade River flows on, and I bid you a long farewell." Early the next morning, Shu Bailan came looking for me, dressed in a showy manner. Her hairpins were dazzling, and she was adorned with pearls and jade, a far cry from the fragile and humble demeanor she had shown that day. Her manners were quite proper, but her bow was rather awkward. "Could you, madam, be so kind as to let go of Yia? I have been with him as mother and son for many years, and it is truly hard for me to part with him." She bit her lip. "If you truly like children, I could have another one with the general, and when it is born, I will bring it to you, sister." She clearly knows I have difficulty having children and deliberately said these words. "I was just feeling upset and came here to let the wind disperse the pent-up frustration in my chest. It seems today's troubles remain unresolved." I chuckled lightly and casually said, "Since you like giving birth, then have as many as you want. For every child you have, I'll take them in. If I can't raise them all, I'll sell them off one by one." Upon hearing this, her pupils suddenly dilated, and her face instantly turned pale, as if she was terrified to the extreme. Anyone who hears it would know that this is just a bluff. According to the laws of this dynasty, even concubines cannot be sold at will, let alone the children of concubines. Even as the mistress, one should treat legitimate and illegitimate children equally to avoid giving others a reason to gossip. Yet she seemed to genuinely believe that I would casually sell off the children of concubines in the future. She suddenly took several steps closer, her eyes wide with fury. "How dare you?" Before I could react, I saw her grab my wrist and pull me to the side, accompanied by a cry, "Bailan!" She fell straight into the pond in front of us, and a tall figure brushed past me without hesitation, diving in after her. In a moment of urgency, reactions don't lie. Shen Wan scooped her into his arms, his eyes filled with urgency. It wasn't until he held her and unexpectedly met my gaze that he suddenly felt a wave of unease. I didn't look at him again and turned to leave. Behind me, Shen Wan seemed to want to chase after me but was held back by something. The woman's voice was soft and delicate. "Please don't blame me, sir. It was my own carelessness. Such a clumsy trick is useless against me. But for Shana Yuan, it might not be." Turning the corner of the corridor, I was momentarily distracted and bumped into something with my leg. "Madam, young master, call for your mother quickly." The little maid, holding the 3-year-old child, hurriedly knelt to the ground. "She is not my mother. She is the bad woman who stole father." He pointed a finger at me, full of aggression, beside me. Qingdai fumed. You are simply. I stopped her. He was just a 3-year-old child. If not for someone deliberately teaching him, how would he know what to say or do? If I were to truly argue with a child, then I would be the foolish one. Take him and get back to the west courtyard. My tone was icy, leaving no room for argument. At that moment, a servant woman approached from behind, one that Shu Bailan had brought into the estate. "Little master, let's go," I heard her mutter under her breath. "She's nothing but a hen that can't lay eggs. In time, this estate will be under the control of Our Lady and the young master." I glanced at her sideways, a cold smile curling at the corner of my lips. "Qingdai, slap her." Qingdai had long been furious. She stepped forward, grabbed the servant woman, and swung her arm, delivering 2 heavy slaps that knocked out one of the woman's teeth. By now, people were gradually turning to look in this direction. I said coldly, "Disrespecting your superiors, reckless and foolish, expel her from the estate immediately. Shu Bailan has failed to discipline her subordinates and educate her children properly, and has offended a distinguished guest. For these multiple offenses, she is to receive punishment in the ancestral hall and is forbidden to leave her courtyard for 3 months. After walking a few steps, I turned back and looked at the pale-faced old woman. "Oh. And remember to tell your mistress that today's punishment was not issued by the head of the Shen family, nor by the general's wife. It was issued by Jiang Wn, the Marquis of Lingguang, personally bestowed by His Majesty. If she has the courage, she can come and reason with me." To this day, the only Marquis of Lingguang in this dynasty was personally conferred by Xiao Jinyang on the day of his ascension to the throne. That day, I heard that Shu Bailan, after being punished, went crying to Shen Yuan, but he almost cruelly smiled and said to her, "Even if she wants you to die, you should do so without complaint or regret." Late at night, he stood outside the door and asked me in a somewhat happy tone, "Wanwan, you punished Shu Bailan today because you care, because you still have me in your heart." I did not reply, only tightly closed the door, sat at the table, and pressed my fingerprint on the divorce agreement I had already signed. When he saw the divorce agreement, he seemed calm, yet also seemed to go mad. "Is it because of taking a concubine? But you clearly agreed to it." "Fine, if you don't want it, I won't take a concubine. I won't take anyone," he said in a low voice. "If you don't like her, I can drive her away or even kill her." "Wanwan, I will never agree to a divorce." I looked at him calmly, my words inevitably venomous. "If you truly wanted to kill her, you wouldn't have waited 3 years to let me make the choice, to let me be the villain." "Shen Yuan, how clever you are. How could you not have seen that she was disguised as a man back then? Yet you allowed it. A year together at the border, from indifference to gradual surrender in that entire year. Did you ever once think of me in the capital or the vows we once made? Yes, after she fled, you thought no one would ever know about this. And you could bury these mistakes with a clear conscience. All these years, have you ever felt even a hint of shame when facing me? 3 years ago, you met her again. At that time, she was holding your child in her arms. As you looked at the child who resembled you so much, what was on your mind? Did you feel relieved that in this life, you wouldn't be unable to have your own offspring because of me, because of this child? You also forgave his mother. Did you think to yourself, how deep my love is? Look, to keep Jiang Wn from being sad, I went to great lengths to hide it from her. How much I love her. No, it's not like that. Wanwan." His voice choked, his lips trembling uncontrollably, tears welling up in his eyes like a broken dam. I was just momentarily curious. I had never met such a peculiar woman before. That night with her was an accident. "I don't love her. I only love you, Wanwan. I only love you." I looked up, forcing back my tears. "Shen Yuan. Let it end here. From the highest heavens to the deepest underworld, from this moment on, all ties between us are severed." As I watched his stumbling figure walk away, I suddenly remembered my past life. The emperor, holding supreme power, exhausted all his efforts to seek a method for my next life. Kneeling before heaven and earth, and bowing to gods and Buddhas, the Tsongshan mountains are covered in snow, and the lamps are lit to prolong the day, in the world's foremost temple, Jiaohua Temple. The eternal lamp burned for 81 days, amidst the fierce wind and heavy snow. Shinar Yuan knelt before the Buddha. If the gods and Buddhas have spirits, Shinar Yuan is willing to pay with all her lifetimes for a chance to start over. May Jiang Wn meet a good person and live without worries year after year. And as for me, Shinar Yuan, life or death does not matter. If you knew that you used all your lifetimes just to bring back one Jiang Wn, do you have any regrets? Early the next morning, I prepared my horse and entered the palace. In this world, it is not only Shinar Yuan who has the merit of aiding the emperor. Jiang Wan, once helped the current emperor seize the throne, and he still owes me a promise. Lady Wn, watch your step. Thank you, eunuch Gao. Gao Sheng was Xiao Jinyang's personal eunuch. Having served him for many years, you honor this servant too much. In recent years, aside from palace banquets, I had not seen Xiao Jinyang again. When I arrived, the emperor in the imperial study had already concluded the morning court early. Having changed out of his dragon robe into a clean and bright white brocade garment, with his hair tied up in a fine jade crown, Xiao Jinyang turned around, standing tall and graceful, with a handsome and dignified appearance. His eyes held a look of disdain, and his pupils were deep and profound. The collar of his robe was filled with the fragrance of ambergris. Now in his prime, he had grown increasingly resolute and composed. In his previous life, after the crown prince suddenly fell ill and passed away, the situation in the palace changed abruptly. Xiao Jinyang and his sister's mother had passed away early, and they were neither favored nor had any maternal family support, giving them no advantage in the struggle for the throne. Thus, even though he had read all the books in the world and possessed great talent for governance, he could only hide his abilities, unwilling to be drawn into the conflict, and with the support of the Jiang family, Xiao Yuyang quickly established a firm foothold. It wasn't until after he ascended the throne that he began to mercilessly eliminate his own brothers one by one, using absurd reasons. The young Xiao Jinyang, long confined to the deep palace and forced to retreat to Fuyang, had long since had his edge worn away, only wanting to protect his young sister. In the end, he was still executed in the marketplace on charges of amassing troops for rebellion. Even back then, I should have realized that Xiao Yuyang was a man of stubbornness, arrogance, and cold-hearted indifference. Unfortunately, it was already far too late, and in the end, I met the fate of a broken home and a ruined life. But in this second life, I hold all the advantages, planning each step carefully. The first move was to choose Xiao Jinyang as the ruler of this land. The facts have proven that he is a wise and capable ruler. With the world in his hands, the people live in peace, and the land enjoys prosperity and stability. Xiao Jinyang's voice was gentle and low, interrupting my reminiscence. Actually, I've always been curious, why were you so determined to choose Shinar Yuan back then? A smile played at the corner of his lips, as if he were merely asking casually. The facts have proven that I made the wrong choice, haven't they? The fault is not yours. It was he who betrayed you. It no longer matters. I have come here today to ask two things of your majesty. Go ahead. First, I request that your majesty issue an edict allowing me to divorce General Shun. Second, I have heard that the policy for selecting female officials has been finalized. May I volunteer to conduct inspections among the common people and contribute my efforts for your majesty? He pondered for a moment. The first matter, I can grant you. As for the second, conducting inspections among the common people involves much hardship and is no easy task. I am not afraid. I beg your majesty to grant me permission. In this lifetime, I should also do something worthwhile. Very well. The female official system was originally your proposal. I have merely been open to good advice, and I feel reassured in trusting it to you. Thank you, Your Majesty. Since the matter was settled, it was not appropriate for me to linger, so I requested to take my leave. Xiao Jinyang said gently, I will have someone escort you out of the palace. Jiao Sheng, arrange for someone to see Miss Jiang off. After Jiang Wen left, Xiao Jinyang sat behind the desk, absent-mindedly polishing his jade thumb ring. A slanting ray of sunlight filtered through the window lattice, illuminating the dancing wisps of ambergris incense. Jiao Sheng, he suddenly spoke up, who in the harem do you think imitates Jiang Wen the most closely? Jiao Sheng bent over, lowering his head as he carefully listed them. Consort Zhuang's eyes and brows are the most similar. Consort Yu's voice is about 80% alike, but when it comes to demeanor and temperament, it would have to be the newly entered noble lady Ru. Xiao Jinyang remained indifferent, murmuring softly, I was being shallow, it's merely a resemblance. Jiang Wen will always be Jiang Wen. Years ago, his second elder brother had bribed people to trap him in a fire. It was Jiang Wen, dressed in black, who rode alone on horseback and single-handedly pulled him to safety. No one else could ever be like her. Goldman hesitated. Miss Jiang is about to divorce soon. If Your Majesty likes her, why not? Xiao Jinyang shook his head. Even Shen Yuan couldn't do it. How dare I dream of her? It would only lead to a resentful couple. I truly feel fortunate that with Jiang Wen, we only remained close friends, never husband and wife. Goldman, your servant is here. Prepare the brush and ink. I shall personally draft the decree. No sooner had my carriage come to a halt than the decree of divorce arrived. Shen Yuan, however, refused to accept the decree. Jiao Sheng glanced at him, and the elderly lady Shen, seeing her grandson as if he had lost his soul, tremblingly took the decree on his behalf. I originally thought that, given Shen Yuan's state just now, leaving the Shen family would be met with obstacles, but the servant came to report that, not long after Jiao Sheng left, Shen Yuan stood up and, overwhelmed with grief, vomited blood and collapsed to the ground. So, taking advantage of his unconsciousness, I only took Qingdai with me and boarded the Jiang family carriage. I did not return to the Jiang residence, even though my parents and brother insisted on bringing me back. These years, I haven't been going out much, but I haven't missed a single private estate in the countryside. I chose a residence in Shunmen Alley, just waiting for the imperial decree to arrive before setting off for Jiangnan. Qingdai is quite strong. As she packed, she asked me, Miss, are you just going to let it go like this? She was asking if I was really going to let go of Shen Yuan. No longer entangled, no longer concerned, I gazed at the purple locust tree in the courtyard and whispered softly, between him and me, 2 lifetimes have been settled. Qingdai shook her head, her expression filled with confusion. Xiao Jinyang sent hidden guards to watch over me, stationed outside the courtyard. But I never expected that Shen Yuan would break through the layers of guards and abduct me. It had only been 2 days since we last met, yet his face had grown alarmingly thin. Ignoring my struggles, he placed me on the sandalwood chair. He knelt down, his fingers gently touching my cheek. Wanwan, how could you leave so heartlessly? Do you really not want me anymore? I kicked at him and turned my face away. Have you gone mad? The imperial decree for the divorce has already been issued. You are defying the emperor's order. He slowly stood up, his tall figure looming over me. All traces of sorrow vanished from his expression, and in that moment, he became the ghost-faced general once more, the one who could raise his blade and leave countless bones in his wake. My heart was filled with terror as I heard him say, "What if I defy the imperial decree?" He laughed coldly, tears still not fully dried. Half human, half demon, Wanwan, I will never agree. For all eternity, I am yours. Even in death, our bones shall remain intertwined. Divorce is absolutely impossible. You can forget about it in this lifetime. Shin Ah-Yuan was never a kind-hearted man. In his past life, he single-handedly brought down the Xiao dynasty, and in this life, he would never be a coward. I truly regretted it in my heart. If I had known Shen Shuren would be this mad, I should have ended him with a single stroke of the blade. Shen Ah-Yuan placed me in a courtyard of unknown location, and that very night, he returned reeking of alcohol. He pressed his face tightly against the back of my hand, his scalding tears falling one by one. Wanwan, I only made one mistake.